Today I'm sharing this watercolor background card with a simple embellishment and some stamped images from the Ton's Hey Foxy set. For this particular card, I'm using these two foxes that are facing each other, and they seemed perfect for a quick and easy card for someone special, especially since Valentine's is coming up. I'm using Spectrum Noir markers to color them in, and when I color smaller images like this, I don't use too many pens. I just use about 3 colors per area, using the darker colors first and then the light color, and I'll use a medium color to blend everything together. And for this fox, I think this is the boy fox, I have a darker color fur. And for the girl fox, she has eyelashes. It's super cute. I color it with a little lighter fur just so it's distinguishing the two from each other. And because they face each other, I think it works well with the card idea that I have. They almost seem to be forming a heart when they face each other, especially with their little tails. So once I'm done coloring these two foxes, I'm going to create a watercolor background. And for the background, I'm using Canson XL watercolor paper and the Artist Loft watercolors. The set of watercolors is super affordable. I think it's under $10. And since I'm a beginner in watercoloring, I think that this set works well for me until I get used to actually coloring with watercolors and creating different types of backgrounds and things like that. I'm using a Royal Langnickel Zen watercolor wash brush, and I'll saturate the paper first. And I'm wanting to do a purple and pink ombre background. So I'm using 4 colors for this background, and I'll lay down the 4 colors horizontally, and then I'll use my heat gun to dry it, and I'll repeat these steps until I feel like the color saturation looks good. And from experimenting, I just have to keep adding layers of colors, and I'm not sure if it's the watercolors that are just a little light or if I'm using too much water, but it's a lot of experimenting, and I think that the watercolor background came out nicely, and it does end up being very bright after a few times of drying it and adding extra layers. And once I'm satisfied with the color, I'll take off the painter's tape and I have my background ready to go. This heart embellishment is from Hero Arts, my monthly Hero January 2018 kit, and I really love how intricate it is. Because it's so detailed, I also use a metal shim while I'm die cutting this heart out. Once the heart is die cut out, I'll remove all the little extra pieces, so I'll have this really pretty heart. I used watercolor paper for this embellishment because I wanted it a little bit thicker since I plan to heat emboss this. So taking my Versamark ink, I'll just press it all over the heart and make sure that the ink is all over the little nooks and crannies of this intricate die. When that's ready, I'll throw this into the container where I have my gold embossing powder, and I just want to make sure that the entire heart is covered. Once that's ready, I'll take my heat gun and I'll melt the powder, and it's really pretty when it melts and it just becomes a smooth gold. Since the embellishment is gold, I wanted the background to tie in with the same color, so I take another piece of watercolor paper and I'll use the Versamark ink to ink up the edges. I'll use the same gold powder for the edges and take my heat gun to melt it. While I was doing this, I noticed that the powder was kind of light, so there was still white peeking through, so I'll go back and repeat my steps. Once I go ahead and melt the powder, I'll see that it's a lot thicker and it's exactly how I want it. And it's okay if it's a little messy because we'll have another piece covering it up anyway. Using a My Favorite Things Blueprint 27 frame, I'll die cut the watercolor piece down, and this cuts out a little bit smaller than a typical A2 card, so the gold edges will be peeking through. Using the banner from the Ton stamp set and the Thinking of You sentiment, I stamped this out. For some reason, I stamped out 4 of them. You'll see me doing it. I'm not really sure why I did, but I usually have some issues with sentiments, so I always stamp a few extras just in case so I don't have to go back. And once I pick the banner that I want to use, I'll color it up using a few Copic markers, and I just color it up with a light purple just to tie in the purple at the top of the card since the sentiment will be sitting at the bottom. So I fussy cut this out. I didn't want any white edges. And I'll also use a momentum ink marker to color up the edges so there's no white peeking through. So this card is ready to assemble, and I add score tape to the edges of that watercolor piece. And once I release all the release paper, I'll add it to the gold piece, and that hides any of that messy heat embossing I did earlier. So I play with this to see where I want everything to lay. And for the two foxes and the banner, I'll run it through my Xyron sticker maker. It just makes it easier to add adhesive to it. And because watercolor with glue kind of messes with the colors, it moves it around. I rather just use stickers for it. For the heart, it's a different story because it's so intricate and it's a little bigger than my sticker maker. I just use multi-medium glue and I put very little, and I just make sure that it will stick down. The foxes will actually lay on top of this heart anyway, so it'll help keep the heart down. And I'll put the two foxes facing each other so they're almost kissing, and I'll add that banner with the sentiment on it. And there were some parts of the hearts that were still sticking up, so I add a little bit more glue, and I'll put an acrylic block on top just so it'll dry. And that's it for this card. I really liked how it turned out. The heat embossing adds a special touch to it, making the watercolors stand out even more. I hope you enjoyed today's card. Thank you for taking time out to watch, and have a great day. Bye!